And it means so much to me and to Governor Walz that you knocked on doors, you called friends, you called in favors. You said, hey, I showed up at your softball game. Now I need you to show up at the campaign office. You put in the time. It was personal for you. Because of your efforts, get this, we raised an historic $1.4 billion, almost $1.5 billion. The work must continue of reminding ourselves that we have an ability to stay engaged in a way that will make a difference. The work that you all did, it's going to have lasting effect. The election didn't turn out like we wanted it to, certainly not as we planned for it to. And I know this is an uncertain time. I'm clear-eyed about that. I know you're clear-eyed about it. And it feels heavy. And I just have to remind you, don't you ever let anybody take your power from you. And I am thankful because I know your character is such that you're not going to get knocked down. And you're in this fight. And the outcome of this election, obviously, is not what we wanted. It is not what we worked so hard for. You called friends. You called in favors. You said, hey, I showed up at your softball game. Now I need you to show up at the campaign office. Again, I'll say, the election didn't turn out like we wanted it to. Certainly not as we planned for it to. But understand that the work we put into it was about empowering people. That's the spirit with the work we did. Our spirit and our work was about saying that it is a strength that we each have to lift people up. And I know that about you. It's why you're part of this call right now and all the work that you did over those 107 days and even before. That's your nature. It's leaders that we are dedicated to the coalition, that the strength of our country will be a function of our willingness to put in the work, and that we will do that work with a sense of joy, yes, with a sense of work ethic and understanding it's going to be hard, but it's good work. It's good work.
When we got in, my recollection is some of that snapped back, but we were behind. I mean, I think it surprised people because there was these public polls that came out in late September, early October, showing us with leads that we never saw. It was just basically a race that in the battlegrounds was 46-47, 47-48. So that's not where we started. We started behind. She was able to climb out. I think even after the debate, we might have gained, 0.51. It wasn't a race that moved a lot. And so I think when you think about our own internal analytics, if Wisconsin at 47-47, or Pennsylvania 48-47 Trump, let's say, which I think is where we had it at the end, you've got to have undecided to break your way more than your opponents, and you've got to get a little benefit from turnout, which we weren't able to do.
The president has been instructing advisors and allies to keep her options open. That could be a possible 2028 presidential run, or even a run for governor in her home state of California in 2 years. Harris has reportedly repeating in phone calls, quote, I'm staying in the fight. Let's talk about it now with our political panelists. Theron Vaughn joins us now, a Democratic strategist, and Luke Ball is a Republican strategist. So two different perspectives here. Welcome to you both. Theron, we'll start with you. Is this a good idea for VP Harris to continue her political ambitions?
Not to run for president again in 2028. Please don't. I can't really speak for governor of California. Californians seem to support her significantly. We haven't yet been able to measure what that support looks like after this current run she just had. That may be the only thing that may make sense for her to consider. But another shot at the presidency, I hope she doesn't. And if she is relying on those same advisors that advised her this cycle, that's not who I would listen to.
Luke, she lost in a landslide to Trump in this election. If she runs for governor of California, can she win that race?
Well, I think she might have a hand up in California because I think that's one of the only states where she might actually have an edge. She'd have high name ID. But if she ran anywhere else in the country, I don't think she'd be able to get elected to dog catcher, unfortunately, because if I'm a donor, if I'm a Democrat, I'm looking at this race and I'm looking at the aftermath as we start to go through the autopsy of the campaign. And I'm seeing that we're paying millions of dollars to celebrities to astroturf the campaign instead of spending that money on critical resources, even like the DNC. If I'm on that side of the political aisle, I'm wondering why can't we give that to staff members as opposed to sending it to celebrities, paying $5,000 for having their nails done. Like the RNC went through this just over a year ago, and we cleaned house ahead of the election. And I think that if I'm a Democrat strategist and I'm operating within the DNC, I'm having the same thought process. We have to have a come to Jesus meeting and figure out, number one, who the heck is the leader of our party? Number two, what sort of drastic changes are we going to make to position ourselves to come up in this next upcoming midterm election and start to change the direction of the country from our perspective? So I don't think Kamala Harris is going to have a shot at a national campaign anymore. Maybe she'd be able to find a home in California, but I think her national political spot.
Given the outcome of the election, you now have this soul searching that is happening. And James Carville is weighing in. And as Berman told me off camera, this was James Carville unplugged on the soul searching that Democrats are doing. What seemed to tee him off in what I'm about to play you is the campaign conversation around whether or not Kamala Harris should have done an interview, gone on Joe Rogan's podcast, and what impact that would have had. Let me play what Carville's take on all this is.
The vice president was thinking about going on Joe Rogan's show, and a lot of the younger progressive staffers pitched a hissy fit. If I were running a 2028 campaign and I had some little snot-nosed 23-year-old saying, I'm going to resign if you don't do this, not only would I fire that on the spot, I would find out who hired them and fire that person on the spot. I'm really not interested in your uninformed, stupid opinion as to whether you go on Joe Rogan or not.
Kari?
I mean, look, the Democratic Party is far beyond James Carville. I mean, I'm not sure that he's in the mainstream. I'm not sure the last time that he actually talked to voters who were in a barbershop or in a college dorm room, or the last time that he had a town hall meeting or visited a town hall meeting or pressed the flesh or kissed the baby. I love the fact that people go to James Carville so that they can have outbursts like that. He's the Dan Hurley of Democratic politics, where you just have these kind of manic outbursts day in and day out. The Joe Rogan debate is old. If she would have gone on Joe Rogan, she still would have lost this race. Trump didn't win this race because he went on Joe Rogan. It's hard to win a race when 75% of voters say they were better off 4 years ago than they are today. And, we had this podcast yesterday on Pod Save America where, all of the campaign staffers decided to call up and go to Pod Save America. It was disappointing at best, hearing their lack of self-awareness, their lack of self-reflection. The inability to figure out a way in which you could win this race simply providing messaging and saying that we're up, whereby you don't believe that in your heart of hearts to be true, I just think was disappointing. And Pod Save America themselves have been relatively disappointing because they were supposed to be our ecosystem to compete with the right-wing Ben Shapiro's. We were supposed to have this information chamber that was Pod Save, but instead they've kind of become this cocoon themselves where challenging them becomes a hissy fit back and forth. And their messaging has not been one that's been able to prove successful with those same voters that we're talking about Donald Trump did well with. And so I think everybody needs to take a moment of self-reflection, including myself, to figure out how we can get better for 2025. People are talking about 2028. If we get smacked in 2025 in New Jersey and Virginia, then you blow it up. But until then, people just need to stop.
To pay people, it's not going to have the same impact. I think these Call Her Daddy shows and all these different shows that she went on, I mean, I'm sure they had an impact. But I think that in the future, I'm sure they're scrambling to try to create their own version of this show. Right. This is one thing that keeps coming up, like we need our own Joe Rogan. Right. But they had me.
Well, number one, they had you. Number one, they had you. They had you and they drove you away. Is that number one? But they also have, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN.
Right, but that doesn't work anymore. That's like you're using smoke signals and everybody else has a cell phone. Yeah, that's right. It doesn't work.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It's just, it's a bizarre time.
Clearly, Putin has a type. He likes narcissists and egomaniacs that he knows as a case officer he could easily pander to and manipulate to do his dirty work. We are under attack. Russia has been using different levers, whether that's corruption networks. In this case, it's influencers like Donald Trump, like Elon Musk, to really kind of sow discord. And it's particularly troubling with Elon Musk in this case because Elon Musk has access to state secrets. He has top secret security clearance. It's possible that some of that is seeping through. Putin has been very effective in playing both Trump and Elon, and he's been using the richest man in the world to do his bidding. In some cases, that's encouraging him probably to support Donald Trump. That's not speculation. We see how far in Elon has gone. And then using Twitter as a disinformation platform. So this is not some sort of far off distant threat. This is going to impact our elections. It's a national security.
I have a question about Joe Rogan, and you've sort of touched on elements of this in the US. He's obviously the world's most popular podcast host. He has 3 billion listeners. He's sort of managed to successfully capture that bro market in America. And his influence is such that in the wake of the US election, the Democrats have said that one of Kamala Harris's mistakes was that she didn't appear on his program. So I'm just wondering if you had any observations about what's behind the Joe Rogan effect, how you believe he's managed to so successfully capture this huge market. And then for us here in Australia, how would or should the ABC be going about capturing that kind of audience?
Look, I'm not sure that I'm the right person to respond to that question. I am not a consumer or enthusiast about Mr. Rogan and his work.
Shocking.
I am not one of the 3 billion, and I'm unlikely to be 3 billion and one anytime soon. I think people like Mr. Rogan prey on people's vulnerabilities. They prey on fear, they prey on anxiety, they prey on all of the elements that contribute to uncertainty in society, and they entrepreneur fantasy outcomes and conspiracy outcomes as being a normal part of social narrative. I personally find it deeply repulsive, and to think that someone has such remarkable power in the United States is something that I look at in disbelief. I'm also absolutely in dismay that this can be a source of public entertainment when it's really treating the public as plunder for purposes that are really quite malevolent.
So we know that it's a coveted 49-seat limit, and it's the White House Correspondents Association that determines the seating, even though it's the White House itself that determines the credentials. So talk to me about the potential for a changing landscape there in that White House press briefing room.
Pretty exciting. There might be a White House press briefing seat for the Will Cain Show, of course, which is on FoxNews.com, Fox News YouTube, and Fox News Facebook. The truth is, most of us, though, from the Will Cain Show to Joe Rogan to Megyn Kelly and so forth, we don't have large built-out news departments, reporters and journalists set to sit in that room. And I can't imagine seeing Megyn and Joe moving to D.C. and ready to ask questions directly. But they've earned it. That's the point I think that's being alluded to here, or we're getting to. And as long as they want to invest and build out, they've earned it. You know, Emily, Jim Vandehei did his thing the other day when the founder of Axios, prior to that Politico, they all patted themselves on the back, gave themselves an award and said that podcasters aren't journalists. And Elon Musk, you know, you are not the media. The truth is that whole group, the one that has the 49 seats now, they've lost everything. Every bit of trust, Emily. Through Russiagate to Donald Trump to COVID and every other story, what credibility do you have that you think entitles you to that seat? And I think most of us at this point don't care. I don't care what CBS or ABC or NBC or CNN have to say. I would be interested to hear what a question from Joe Rogan would be to we know because we listened to it for 3 hours, but on an ongoing basis to Donald Trump.
You're CNN and MSNBC. You're at a point that you're okay losing to Fox. You're at a point that you're okay losing to Rogan. You're at a point that you may even okay losing to other podcasters, right? You know, election night, some people are putting more numbers than you are. We did that on election night. You're like, listen, those guys are amateurs. We're pros. We built the Titanic. The amateurs are building the Joe Rogan Experience, the PBD podcast, all this other stuff. But these are amateurs. But imagine you wake up one day and your producer comes to you and says, guys, what? Hallmark just beat us. Well, wait, bro, what are you talking about? Hallmark just beat us. Tell me nobody's written that article yet. Bro, they wrote it already. That's bullshit. No. Hallmark? They make cards. Give them a Hallmark. Hallmark beat CNN and MSNBC in viewership last week.
No way.
Here's a supersized guide to rating in all 32 holiday films. Can you imagine that? Oh, man. How do you let Hallmark beat you? You can let a lot of people beat you. You cannot let Hallmark beat you. We're talking about practice, right? We're talking about Hallmark. We cannot be talking about Hallmark here, right? I mean, you understand what the reference of the great AI.